Welcome to The Explainer. We're diving right into the official U.S. press conference that dropped a bombshell, a massive military operation in Venezuela. So let's break it all down.
All right, here's what we're covering. First, that shocking announcement. Then, we'll get into why they said they had to intervene. After that, the real nuts and bolts of the mission itself, Operation Absolute Resolve. Then, what's next for Venezuela according to the plan? And finally, we'll look at the bigger picture, this new Donro Doctrine.
All right, first up, the big announcement. And believe me, it was a big one.
Yeah, the president came out swinging. He described this thing as an assault like people have not seen since World War II. We're talking about an overwhelming show of force right in Caracas, all to, in his words, bring the outlaw dictator Nicolas Maduro to justice.
And what happened? Well, according to the official account, U.S. forces teamed up with law enforcement, went in and captured Nicolas Maduro and his wife, Celia Flores, in a nighttime raid. The president stressed it was absolutely perfect. He said Venezuelan defenses were basically powerless, and that not a single American was hurt, no equipment lost, just a total display of military precision.
Okay, so the big question is, why? Why do this now? The press conference laid out some very specific reasons for the military action.
They essentially painted Maduro as a kingpin. The list of justifications was long and pretty serious. They're talking about narco-terrorism against the U.S., sending gangs like Tren de Aragua into American communities, grabbing American oil assets, even letting foreign adversaries set up shop in the Western Hemisphere. The official line is that he was waging a campaign of violence, terror, and subversion against the United States.
Okay, now for the part that's just mind-blowing. The how. How in the world did they pull this off? This is where the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Kazin, stepped in to give a deep dive into the raid itself.
General Kane framed this as, and I quote, an audacious operation that only the United States could do. He called it Operation Absolute Resolve, and he made it crystal clear this thing was the result of months and months of planning. This wasn't just a handful of guys kicking in a door. No way. This involved literally every single component of the U.S. Joint Force.
And get this for scale, we're talking about more than 150 aircraft. Think about that. Bombers, fighters, surveillance drones, all airborne at the same time, launched from 20 different bases on land and at sea. He said it was so complex, achieving total surprise in a city like Caracas was an incredible feat.
And the timeline they laid out is just wild. It shows how fast everything moved. At 10:46 p.m. Eastern, the president gives the green light. Through the night, those 150-plus aircraft launch. As they approach, the air component just dismantles Venezuelan air defenses. By 1:01 a.m., the helicopter assault force is on the ground at the compound. Maduro and his wife are in custody. And by 3:29 a.m., the whole extraction team is safely out over the water. A lightning-fast operation.
So how did they do it? General Kine talked about this concept of layering effects. It's like a perfectly choreographed dance where each step makes the next one possible, all to achieve total surprise. First, you have months of intel work from the CIA, NSA, you name it, just tracking the target. Then, you have Spacecom and other assets literally clearing a pathway. Next, the air component goes in and just switches off all the air defense systems. Only then does the helicopter force come screaming in, flying super low, like 100 feet above the water, using the terrain to hide. Finally, the ground team hits with lightning speed, grabs the targets, and gets out under air cover. It's an incredible sequence.
Okay, so Maduro's captured. The mission's a success. The next big question from everyone is, what now? What's the plan for Venezuela?
The president was very clear on this. The plan is for the U.S. to run the country, at least for now. He said they're not going to risk letting someone else take over who doesn't have, quote, the good of the Venezuelan people in mind. So the U.S. is stepping in until what they're calling a safe, proper, and judicious transition can happen.
And a huge part of that plan, it's all about the oil. The president basically said they're going to bring in big American oil companies to fix the infrastructure, which he called badly broken. The idea is the companies will front the money for the repairs and then get paid back from the oil sales. The goal, he said, is to get the oil flow in the way it should be and to run it properly.
All right, so to wrap things up, they zoomed way out. This wasn't just about Venezuela. This was about sending a message, a big one.
The president actually brought up this new idea, something he said people are calling the Donro Doctrine. Basically, think of it as a supercharged version of the old Monroe Doctrine. The core idea is simple. American dominance in the Western Hemisphere will never be questioned again. It's a very clear statement. And really, that's the takeaway they wanted everyone to have. Secretary Rubio put a fine point on it. He said, and I'm quoting here, "You cannot play games with this president because it is not going to turn out well." The whole operation was framed as a lesson to the rest of the world.
So this wasn't just presented as a raid, it was presented as a new vision for U.S. policy, a real line in the sand. And it leaves us all with a pretty big question to think about. What are the consequences going to be?